This is Special Report.
Black holes are one of the strangest things in existence.
Neil Armstrong may have seen extraterrestrials on the moon.
When he spies a discernible shape.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
You can deny all the things I've seen, all the things I've discovered, but not for much longer. Because too many others know what's happening out there. And no one, no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth.
Welcome, everybody, to Full Spectrum Universe. My name is Rob Yox, the Saturday Night Savage. We have a great show for you tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the science of the paranormal, or shall we say hauntings and or spirits. It is a new look for the studio. If there is any technical difficulties, please put it in the comments. If you can hear me, make sure I have everybody's attention. We have a new camera set up. I am not used to it, so if I take my face away from the mic and you can't hear me anymore, please let me know what's going on. I just want to know, what's happening out there for everybody. I appreciate you being here on Saturday night, as we always do. I am also still sharing this out. So one thing I would like to ask everybody to do is to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is the first comment in the comments itself. Also, please, if you could share this, like this, comment if you are out there and if you have a question or if you have anything to add about the spiritual or the paranormal. Also, please don't mind me if I don't look directly at the camera. I'm still getting used to it. I'm using the arrow hand. I'm not pointing. You see the arrow, like Dan Bongino says. But I have my computer set up here, which is usually what I run on. So now that I have the camera, I have to maintain myself and switch my focus back to the camera. So I'm talking to all of you and not to the computer itself. Please let me know if you think that the video quality is better now because of this camera. I'm very curious to find out. So let's get started. I hope everybody is having a great weekend. Friday night was last night. Today is Saturday. It is a relaxed day tomorrow, which is Sunday. And, I just want to touch base if you have anything to say out there, any comments, any questions for us. We are revamping a lot of things. I did get a new microphone that will come up to here, which it is a very, very expensive and great microphone. But when I purchased the soundboard, which will also give me a little bit of bass and reverb and all that good stuff to sound like an actual broadcast, they didn't tell me that there would need to be an extra wire. I actually bought an extra adapter because this is a 4K camera, so the cameras could go back and forth and communicate with each other. So I can always switch to the other camera if I need to, which is, it's a lot of fun. But I didn't realize that the soundboard needs this extra USB cord for it, right? So we will have that new microphone up next week. I promise you that. We have a great show. I mean, what we're really doing today is we're going to be looking at, excuse me, we're going to be looking at a little bit of a different take on paranormal than usual because, and I stress the because we believe in the paranormal. We know that is fact. It is not conjecture. It is not myth. It is not theory. It is out there for us. Now, if we look at mainstream science with their experimentation to figure it out, there is no plausible analysis that they have that constitutes them to say that it is definitely positive. But there's a caveat to that because they haven't done some of the things that we do, or they're not as enthusiastic to prove that the paranormal is real. So what I did was I took a little bit of both sides, right? So I have some science articles that we're going to go over them a little bit. They're going to tell us all about what they believe and how it doesn't exist. But reading these articles, it was fascinating. And I'm going to tell you why it was fascinating, because you could see the places where we personally, as investigators or people who are into the paranormal, know that there to be some truth in fact. They have not been out there to investigate 9 times out of 10. What they're doing is they're sitting in a lab and essentially when they're sitting in their lab, they don't have any contact with, an spiritual person or an entity or anything like that. So their theories and experiments are very convoluted. Also, there's something called, pseudoscience or parapsychology, which, has to do with mediums and things like that. And we're going to get into that a little bit too. This is going to be a very broad topic. And if everybody has anything to add in the comments, please add the comments. I would love to see what all you guys have to say. It's truly going to be a fun show because we're not going to be talking about anything that's going to actually give you a specific answer. The only thing we're going to come to this evening is you're going to have more questions. And the more questions you have, the more you actually question your surroundings and everything going on around you, the more informed you are, the better off you are. So it is a productive episode, but we're not going to actually have any specific answers. We're only going to compare the two sides to see where maybe some similarities lie and some major differences. So while I finish sharing this out, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's tuning in. One of the reasons why I thought of this episode tonight was because we all know that they had the Paranormal Awards. I believe it was Paranormal Rewind, and Brandon Alvis actually won an award for Pioneer. He was a trailblazer in his field, which is investigation. And one thing he likes to do, from what I understand, and I'm not speaking for him or about him, but from what I look, when I see his profile and the things that he looks at the science side of it. Along when I interviewed Daryl Marston, he said the same thing. And to me, that's awesome. I love science. I love everything that has to do with science and history. So this was right up my alley, right off the bat. So when I was looking through a lot of this stuff, it was baffling at first. You're sitting there like, well, they're talking about quantum relativity, and so there's some fundamental groundwork we have to do before we actually get into the topic itself. But I kid you not, one of the most interesting things that I personally saw was some of these articles. So I wanted to bring this to everybody. I thought it was beneficial, and so we're going to get into it a little bit. Like I said, I hope everybody is having a great weekend, and the Saturday Night Savage is here. Bear with me just a moment. I am still sharing. It is beyond epic how many times we share this out. And I hope you guys share it out too. I hope we can get people on board. One of the reasons why I am upgrading the studio is because we are going to be having a website that is going to be unveiling within the next month and a half or so. And I wanted to upgrade all the criteria of that which goes with what we do. So our shows are going to be a little bit better. We may even start doing some actual recorded shows too, now that we have the camera. There's going to be a lot of stuff that is going to not change, but a lot of stuff that's going to get better as we go on. And, one of the things we do while we're looking at all this stuff and, trying to make everything better is we're trying to find the best ways to bring you the best quality of show. So with all that being said, I appreciate you coming in, and let's get to some of this stuff. And I see we have 6 people on right now. Kelly, how you doing? As you can see, if you guys haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel already, please support us. Please help us out any way you can. One way is by subscribing, liking, sharing the videos. So now that we're here and we're talking about stuff, the first article I want to talk about is, what we're going to do is we're going to go through everything and we're going to highlight one team at the end of this show. One segment I felt like we should do is start highlighting some of the teams out there who are not maybe so world renowned, or, people may not know, or we're going to shine light on them, and hopefully people will get to know them, because there's a lot of great teams out there that people just don't know about. They don't get enough exposure. So with this platform, I'm going to help bring some of those people to light and some of those teams so we can get to know them as well. So the first article I pulled up is by the gentleman his name is Sean Martin. The title of the article is Are Ghosts Real? Easy enough. Scientists claim to have discovered the truth. So this is going to be taken from a science background. This is not me stating this. This is only what we see in this article. It says that ghosts are a trick of the mind when the brain is still half asleep, according to leading experts. We don't believe that. But let's see what they say, because it's interesting to hear what they talk about, you know? So the first thing it says, scientists believe that they have a more rational explanation for this now, and they theorize the paranormal experiences have nothing to do with ghosts, but to do with one's sleep patterns. We do know that when people don't sleep well, they start to hallucinate. But some of the articles we get into later are going to talk how, basically when things move or we hear a voice, and, it's there's so much stuff here. So basically, what they do in this article is they test people's sleeps, their sleep pattern. They also tried to use, quantum relativity from the 70s. Even that was, it's a typical science class that you're going to read in this. But so when we look at what they're looking at, if they can't use an experiment, it's basically they have a hypothesis, experiment, conclusion. That's how they go about. They have a more refined scale, but I'm going to use a very general one. So the hypothesis is, are ghosts real? The experiment that they used was from a gentleman by the name of Professor Gregory, and he was looking at when people fell asleep, and the brain stem and parts of the consciousness that may be involved. So maybe before we get into this more, let's define what we think ghosts are, and or entities, or whatever you may call them. And I think that it's important to label this. And one of the things that we can only do by labeling it is give you what I personally think. You may think something different, and I actually would love to hear what you think in the comments. But I believe that every person has a energy inside of them, a soul, or whatever. Your creator gave you an energy. This is why we are able to have emotion, and we look at things in different ways than animals do. We're a bit different. Some animals do have souls. I hate to say it, but some, as per my experience, do not. All living things should be sacred. I understand that too. I'm not saying that anything, blasphemous like that. But so when this energy is inside of you, it gives us this cognitive ability to think, to problem solve, to, a lot of these different things. It stimulates our brain. It's a electromagnetic force that can be measured, because we have static electricity that run through us, while in electrical fields, they can actually sense some of this, of that energy when it comes from you or to you and flow through you. So when we pass on, and this is using science too. So they always say that energy cannot be destroyed. It can shift, it can manipulate, it can change form. If it's energy by their own ideologies, it doesn't go away. So what happens, right? And this isn't what I don't want to do. Is I don't want to look at all of entities or residual energies in a place in the same mechanism. It's all going to be different. It's all got its own lane, right? So we're not talking about the whole 4-lane highway when we talk about this energy being able to be transferred, things like that. What we're doing is we're taking one lane. We're taking the slow lane right now, because we're building up to the fast lane, right? So as the energy gets transferred, we lose our physical. Our body, which is a shell to harness this energy, passes away or dies. But that energy is changed. Now, here's a caveat to this too. And this is me just thinking, and I'm doing it out loud. Let's just say that, some places we feel are haunted by entities, but some places are given this residual energy from all of the bad that has happened in the place itself, right? So when we look at that, it's a bit different, because through this trauma, this area has absorbed this excess energy because, and this is where we're looking at, if we look at a soul or whatever energy is inside of us, that begs the question that does that energy basically get stronger or smaller? Does it expand or does it become smaller? One thing I will say is that, a theory is that when mediums channel the other side and pierce that veil, they're taking their mind's eyes, their energy from their brain and their soul, and they're expanding their field. By expanding their field, what they're doing is they're able to see different things that maybe people who can't expand at that level would see. So, like I said, this is a very strange show, and the fact that we're not going to really have answers. It's only going to be leading to more questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead you to that rabbit hole. And what I suggest you do is after we finish here is do your own research and not become an expert, but do something to maybe help find the answer to that. And here's the other part of this too is that, nobody has all the answers. I believe that wholeheartedly. We're all intelligent in our own ways, right? We all have our own lanes that we have an innate ability to understand. Also, we all have these ability, this lane, shall we say, that we are interested in, so it's easier for us to do that research, right? So that's one of the reasons that, personally, I preach a unity to the community, because when we have this unity and we look at it in a whole, right? There's so many dots. Everybody has their own dots. So for us to get the whole story, what we have to do is look at each other's dots and help connect them with our own dots, because somebody's information might be that missing piece between two things that you're looking at. And I firmly believe in that. It goes back to this expanded consciousness that during, ancient times, that everybody along the equator literally thought to build pyramids all at the same time. And they didn't get that from each other. They got that from this infinite source of knowledge. So is there a way for us to actually tap into that now? And I believe one way to do that is to come together and convene with these ideas and sit in groups and really, talk through them and find those similarities between our own research. One thing I do want to mention too, and I apologize, is there's an MNL in the corner. I don't know how to get that off yet. You should have seen I had like the date and time at the all over here before. It wasn't good, but we're figuring out the camera. This is a different setup for me. So, scientists, most of them let's get even deeper. Let's do a little bit of history to it too. Most scientists from the 70s, 80s, and 90s don't believe in the paranormal. They don't. As we get into the 2000s and the 2010s to now 2020, they've actually gone out more, experimenting more with different equipment and different things so they could almost prove it, but they haven't gotten there yet because they're just starting to come on board. Scientists are just starting to believe it. And, there's a ton of polls that I have looked at for this, and they say that probably about 52% of America believes in the paranormal. And of course, those scientists some are in there, some are not. But only 18% of those people actually believe that they've come in contact with these entities. So why is there such a big gap in that number? Many reasons. People don't investigate. Very, very well could be it. They don't investigate. They don't have the time. They're not that interested in it. The people that do investigate constitute that 18%. And I think that it has to do with ideologies of region. Because in places like Japan and China, in China, to believe in ghosts will get you ostracized from the community. And there's a lot of, there's quite a bit of stuff that really goes to show you that we have a very expanded culture in America, and even in the UK too. It's a very expanded culture, and it gives us the ability to look into these things a little bit deeper than some of the places where you wouldn't be able to hold a job, you wouldn't be able to see people in your neighborhood, you wouldn't be able to do anything. So, and it's not that we feel sorry for these people. That everybody has their own way of life. We're not saying either is right or wrong, right? So, scientists, when they let's get back to the subject here, but scientists, when they think about specific, just about anything, they have to have empirical data, they call it. Empirical data is where they can look at numbers, graphs, basically any kind of matter that would have gone through a litany of machines to give them their proof that things exist. Now, I know what you're saying out there. You're saying, but I have it on camera. I have it with I have EVPs, I have ITCs, I have all that. They don't see that as proof, which to me is if and they do that because they say that it has a guise that it could be manipulated very easily. Certain things I see cannot be manipulated. They cannot be recreated. They are phenomena. That's why we have to document more of these phenomena, but in a way that we bring this scientific community into the fold too. What happens 9 times out of 10 is you get a scientist and an investigator in a room. Not usually. This is like 9 times out of 10. There are those scientists who will help you, but not that they laugh at you, but they almost look down on you. And the reason why they do that is because, first off, they feel that they're smarter than you are. And I understand that too. They're very educated people. But they think of these things as just conjecture. It's just your mind. They can literally take a litany of causes and effects for that not being what you think it is as an entity. And they have such things like this guy's telling us that we're hallucinating because of dream state. But really, is that true? We don't know that either, because there's so many different things we could talk about with this topic. So let's get a little bit back more. Let's get more into the article again, right? So essentially what they did is, he says, this is what Professor George says in an article for The Conversation. He says, when we experience a bang in our sleep, this might be because of a delay in the process. Instead of the reticular formation shutting down the auditory neurons, they might fire at once. Researching my book, I spoke to Mrs. Sinclair, who is 70 and lives alone. She told me about what she had thought was a ghost living in her house, an imp throttling her during the night, and other things that had left her petrified. So, with this lady, Mrs. Sinclair, the scientist is trying to prove that it isn't a ghost, or what we would call a succubus, if it's mounting her in the night and it's coming to her in her dream state. So having a scientific explanation provides her with immense comfort, and she no longer believes in paranormal explanations for the things that she believes in. Now, we're going to get there. This is about psychology. I want to go a few more places before we hit that up. But what we're going to do is we're going to share a screen in a couple moments, but it says our hope in the scientific explanation of the paranormal experiences might help others by lowering their anxiety. Decreasing anxiety has also been hypothesized as the potential method by which to reduce sleep paralysis. So here we go. This is going to be a whole bag of stuff that we're going to open up, because there's a lot here that we can look at and say, well, that's not what it was, and he's wrong. And I get that too. I get that. So let's break it down with the similarities of science and investigating. Both people are trying to find that piece of evidence, that explanation for why things are happening. Both sides. So we can find common ground on that, right? Also, they're trying to help people. I know when I do an investigation, my ultimate goal is to help the people, whether it be figure out every situation is different, whether we figure out if it's somebody from their past, a loved one, whether they're having an issue, you know, or things like that. So both people are trying to help this person. What's going on, Laura? How are you? I hope you're great. Everybody is great. I thank you for coming on your Saturday night to spend some time with us. It means the world to me. So let's look at that now, right? So we're both trying to help these people. Everybody's trying to help. That's awesome. That's a great thing. No fault in that. Nothing wrong with that. But now we get to what we find is where we start to separate, right? So we know the mythology behind a succubus or, an imp, whatever they want to call them. They don't. So now, being the historian of my team, I have done my due diligence and research to figure out ways to combat this entity. This scientist will look at this and say, what in the holy hell are you talking about? There's something going on with her brain. It's her brain. It goes back to the person, not a source of something else outside of her. So to fix it, the scientist is going to try and use what he has at his disposal to figure out a situational answer to give her, which in turn brings her more comfort, which in turn does help her. We would find a way to rid the house of this entity, in turn giving the lady less anxiety about living there, and she can move on with her days. So let's look at this, right? So our purpose is the same, and our end is the same. It differs in how we get there. If that makes sense, please let me know. It's in the way we get that answer. And the answers may be different, but the ultimate goal is to help her. So it's our journey. If this was an equation like science, it would be A, the reason why we're here, B, what we figured out while we were here, and C, how do we help her completely and in 100% of the way. So A and C are not our problem. It's B. But let me ask you this question too. And see, now I can put my arm back and relax a little bit. But if our B's are so different, what can we do to make our B's maybe a little bit similar? But don't both B's have a valid point in what they're doing? I think so. I think so. Because we know that when there's an answer to a problem, it's not always simple. It's not always simple. There could be a multitude of answers for that specific problem. So why wouldn't there be a multitude of ways for us to investigate? And one of the things that I believe we should be doing is looking at how these scientists investigate on their end, try and incorporate some of that on our end to better help our investigations to be more accepted by their community, right? Wouldn't that be that would be one answer to it, but you have to figure out B for yourself. My job tonight is to show you what B is. So we went through all that, and if ghosts are real, of course they're going to see things differently than we do, right? So here is another article that I found, and it's about dark matter and ghosts. It was written on September 13th, 2016 at 6:28 a.m. It's written by a gentleman by the name of Adam Frank. And this one I found to be very scientifical. There's a lot of science in this. So bear with me while I go through it. But I think that there is a lot of coinciding between dark matter and ghosts or entities. I know I'm calling them ghosts, but that's because I'm reading it from the article. I want the terminology to stick with you. So, what we look at, right? This is an epic article too. I truly love this article because this article to me is showing that there is similarities in science and investigating, and they're finding answers through what we know of dark matter. They're trying to find answers the same way with basically with hauntings, and I think it's an incredible thing. It really is. It really is an incredible thing. So hang on one second. Let me get all this squared away so I can pull the article up. But there's like I said, there's a lot of stuff here that's different. It's very, very different. I know the new camera angle is freaking me out. It's a wild thing. And while I'm doing the show and we're talking about a lot of the science, I feel like we might be losing a little bit on the science side, right? So we may go into a little bit of you know, what we know of about what this is. So this particular article, it goes through every ghost scene that you see in a horror movie, which when you look at this too, that also shows that some of these scientists, when they're looking at this stuff, they don't take it seriously. Which actually would be better for us to do it in a scientific way because we take it serious, but we also take the science serious too. So that's one fault of the science, and it's pretty crazy. But this is according to the Harris poll in 2013. About 45% of people believe in ghosts. And in that same poll, almost 30% of those people believe that they've personally been in the presence of a ghost. So when this guy pokes around looking for real ghost stories, he found many accounts like classic scenes from described above, which is the movie scene. The ghost, you can't see the ghost, but you know it's there. So he went to a lecture after that pertaining to dark matter. So this is where it gets really cool, right? So it got him to thinking, how physicists are really different from people telling those ghost stories, right? Or how physicists and paranormal investigators have a ton of similarities, right? So we're looking at that and we're saying, well, but how can that be? How can that be? How can scientists be like a paranormal investigator? Well, first off, we know that they're bringing more and more scientific tools into the investigation process to help us see the things that can't be seen, which is truly what they're doing with this particular subject, right? So he's going to explain. He said, over the last few decades, scientists have built a new picture of the universe where 95% of it is stuff that comes in a dark form, 27% being dark matter, and 68% being dark energy. But what exactly do physicists mean when they talk about something being dark? So let's lay the groundwork down. But basically, they mean dark stuff acts a lot like a ghost in a horror movie. You can't see the dark matter or dark energy, but you know it's with you because it messes with the things you can see. So we know sometimes if you don't have any extra perception ability, things move while you're in these areas where it's perceived to be haunted. Drawers open up, things get knocked down. We've seen the videos, guys. We've seen these videos, and there is something there pushing cameras off a bed, just like in Madison Seminary when Dave and Eric were on the top floor and they were with Adam, and Eric put his camera down on the bed and it swung it and flew it right off. And he said, but I put it in the middle of the bed. How could it have gotten there? Something manipulated the field of energy around that camera and swiped that camera off the bed, leading it to fall on the floor. Dark energy does the same thing. What it does is, and dark matter, Dark matter can be tested for, and we know it's there, but we can't see it. Dark energy in other universes that they believe it makes for orbits, things like that. It makes suns act in specific ways. So let's get back to this. So it's important to understand that dark matter and dark energy are different things, right? So, in the sense that we've inferred their existence through different kinds of phenomena, this means they go bump in the night with stuff that we can see in different ways. Dark matter was discovered decades before dark energy by looking at how galaxies rotate. It was Vera Rubin's famous work in 1970 that showed pretty much all the spiral galaxies were spinning way too fast to be accounted for by gravitational pull of their luminous matter, their sun, right? Matter is the stuff that we see in the telescope. Rubin and others reasoned there had to be a giant sphere of invisible stuff surrounding the stars in these galaxies, so tugging on them and speeding them up in their orbits at the galaxy's center. So now we see, apologize. Now we see a difference, but also similarities. When they're looking at these things, this is all conjecture anyway. They believe this to be true because they've gone through these experiments to test it. But we've never actually gone to these galaxies and tested them out. So you see, there is a hypothesis between an investigator and a scientist. He's using these laws or what he holds to be completely true in his world, and so are we. When we go into a place and investigate, it's not only because the evidence that we find, but their evidence leads them to a conclusion, just like ours does. So there is a lot of similarities, guys. And we have to be aware of those similarities, because if we're not, we're defeating the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish. How you doing, Jason? Good to see you. Jason, tell me if you see the video and if the quality of the video is better than it normally is. We used a new camera. I would love to make sure. Or anybody out there, just let me know. I know this, and this is hard for some people, this subject. And, we may not get a lot of views on this video, but I thought it was important to find these similarities, because in the future, we have to work together to fill gaps of information in, so we could ultimately find the answers that we're looking for. Science is a fickle thing, and I'll tell you that firsthand, because I'm not great at science. I love science, but I'm not great at it. So I'm using what we know of what these other people are talking about. So let's get back, right? We know that this is it kind of sounds like those ghostly kitchen drawers, doesn't it? What we were talking about. When things move, things like that, it's a little bit different. Things get a little bit convoluted as we go through. But like I said, you'll see that there is a lot of similarities for this. So we're talking about dark energy, and I love space too. So this is right up my alley. Dark energy was discovered 16 years ago when observations showed the expansion of the universe, known since Edwin Hubble in the 1920s, was accelerating. Once again, a form of invisible stuff was invoked to explain the motion of the visible stuff. In this case, dark energy was made accountable for nature's heavy foot on the cosmic gas pedal. So again, just like the scientists believe that this dark matter and dark energy makes stuff happen, makes things move, it's just like if a entity touches your REM pod, right? It's using its energy, touching this certain area to make this detector go off. So it has to envelop the energy around it to make that happen because we know that they are ethereal by chance or by looking at them, they are ethereal. They are not physical anymore. But there's also no explanation of how they are in that form. So entity and dark energy or dark matter. And when I say dark energy, I am not talking about dark arts, dark as in a sense, I'm talking about a scientific term of dark energy, not what we in the investigation field call dark entities. It's not like that at all. This is completely different. Please don't misconstrue that because it it will it won't accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So as we're looking further into this, oh, awesome. So we've got it. We've got it. Excellent video quality. Real good. Thank you, sir. And the lighting is better. You know what the crazy thing is that, Jason, I didn't even buy lighting. What I did is the first off, the camera has a new light on it. Also, I've switched up the lights a little bit to focus. But like I said, I keep looking down at the computer because I'm so used to the camera being right here. It's right there now. I have to focus over there. Also, it's hard to look here and then go there. But so, you know, I'm taking a minute. I'm collecting myself because I truly feel, and I'm going to keep saying this, science is a way for us. It's a way for us to help ourselves investigate better. There's so much out there that we don't know or that we don't have or that we can't understand. But using some of the same laws that they apply in science, like this dark energy or dark matter, will help us. It'll help us to keep focused on what our ultimate goal is, but it'll also help us to separate ourselves from what we're looking at. Because let me ask you this question. You're on an investigation. You experience something. An entity touches you, or let's say something moves. Okay? Cabinet, a drawer. What's the initial reaction? What's the person's initial reaction? Personally, it took me a very long time to get out of that excitement phase where I almost couldn't concentrate during those moments because I was so amped up or excited and like, oh man, something just happened. Did I catch it? Did that catch it? Who did what? What did what? If we looked at it like scientists look at new discoveries or new laws that they're putting together, the hypotenuse, and they're very logical people, which means that they don't show emotion most of the time. And I'm not telling you not to show emotion, but enjoy those moments maybe a little bit further after they've happened. If we could keep ourselves in that logical mindset while it's happening, we may get more evidence come down the line. But then again, that's just speaking on the eye. That's not speaking to the audience. That's me telling you about my personal experience because I do get excited, you know, and a lot of people do. I know a lot of people get that excitement, but it's like, let me give it to you this way. It's a little bit different. If we're taking recordings for EVPs, right? And later we go home, when we're there, we don't really know what's on the recording. We're recording it. We don't really get excited about that until after we get home, check it, write it down, listen to it about 1,000 times. And then we get excited. Oh, that's what that is. Did you hear that? I mean, sometimes that's how it is. Scientists are more like that. They're more structured in being able to detach themselves emotionally. But sometimes emotion could be a good thing too. So, you know, this isn't absolute, you know, we're just having a conversation. So we're going to get back to the dark matter, right? So basically, so how do physicists and astronomers get away with claiming the existence of cosmic ghosts, aka dark matter or dark energy, when they would probably roll their eyes at the descriptions of the terrestrial haunted house kind. So here's where we get to this is the meat and potatoes of the story, right? And the answer is data and its prevalence and its stability. So there is the similarity, right? So that's the answer that they're telling us. There is literally thousands of studies now of those rotating too fast galaxies out there, and they all get the same quiet, noticeable result. In other words, data for the existence of dark matter is prevalent. It's not like you see the effects once in a while, but then it disappears. The magnitude of the result, meaning its strength, also stays pretty consistent from one study to the next. The same holds true for studies about dark energy. So now they're telling us they feel that dark energy is more factual than investigations or entities in haunting houses because of the consistency at which they get their data. But here's the caveat to that too. And we always look at both sides, right? How many investigations do you think that they've really done to get that empirical data that they would get somewhat similar evidence every time? Probably not enough. So this question goes to you people out there, to the audience. Have you done enough of the same type of experiment every time you go to these places to say to somebody, well, it's prevalent data that there is an entity in this place because we get similar readings every time we're here, or at least close? As investigators, can we say that? That's also one of the reasons why I believe an investigation takes longer than one night, maybe even 2 nights. You should go back and redo places 4, 5, 6, 7 times until you get what's called empirical data. Empirical data is prevalent. It's one of the most important things, because then you can go off, just like the people say about dark matter, or the scientists, and say, this has happened 90% of the time that we've been here. Therefore, I can say with an absolute certainty that this place is haunted, that there are entities living here, not just the ones that are human. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to everybody? Because to me, it makes sense. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that we have to look at, but it makes sense to me. I think that this is something that we really have to understand, and we really have to get into the habit of doing, because it will give us better data. It'll also give us enough to go up against these scientists and say, look at it. Okay? I've done this 8 times. It's the same every time. So what does that say to you? Or what does that tell you in your own terminology? Right? That's what it is. So I think that that's something that we should all, really get into the process of. We have Jason here. He says, one of the best spirit manifestations I've encountered was in Calgary, Alberta. A SWAT member in full regalia appeared in front of me for a few minutes before disappearing. Jason, my question to you is, how many times have you been to this place, and how many times has that happened? And I'm not discrediting you whatsoever. That is not what I'm doing here. I'm merely stating a point. And I want to know the answer to that, because I think it's important. Because, like I said to you before, if we can go there multiple times and this happens every time, then we can literally fit this into this categorization of a scientific study. We want them to accept us, and we want to accept them. So we have to speak to them in their terms. Also, they have to speak to us in our terms. It's 50-50, right? So with that being 50-50, we have to take the first step, because they won't understand it. But I'm going to tell you something positive, though. As far as I know, there are more and more scientists. Maybe I wouldn't say that they believe in paranormal, but they're doing their best efforts to prove it. And that is where we're bridging this gap. And the other part of that too is this awakening in society. You know, a lot of the times when I do interviews, I talk about where paranormal investigation was in the 80s and 90s as opposed to where it is today. I mean, the gap is, if I got to get in the camera, the gap is as big as the frame. It's as big as the frame. If you would have told somebody in the 80s, you've been to a haunted house, there are spirits there, I want to say 70% of those people would say you're crazy and have you committed. Now it's about 54% believe. So we are the majority now, as opposed to the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. We are the majority that is in the belief of entities, right? So, you know, there's a lot of things that we have to look at when we look at these experiments, too, is that when they're doing them, like I said, we have to understand that they are not looking for any kind of extra entities or paranormal phenomena while they're there, while they're doing their regular science experiments, because it doesn't benefit them. Also, they get ostracized from the community when they speak like that. So some may believe it, but they hold all that inside because they don't want to admit it to people, because then they'll be ostracized. Nobody wants to be ostracized. Everybody wants to be a part of the pack. It's human nature to be accepted by your peers, especially when people get passionate about this stuff. And, I want everybody to know that I respect everybody's belief. And even if it differs from mine, I will always give you a platform to speak your truth. I think it's important, Here we go. I've been there 7+ times. That spirit manifest happened that one time. Other hauntings in that same building took place. Some poltergeist, some were equipment malfunctions and EVPs. The accounts of the extra things that are happening there besides your account, are they relatively close to what you saw? Or is there some kind of other data that you have that actually, Jason, I want you to come on the show. I'm going to put in the link for you to come on. I want you to come on. I want to ask you some questions about this. I want to get to the bottom of this because I think it's important. So if you have your computer out or your phone, I'm going to put the link in here. I want you to jump in. Jump into the stream because I want to ask you. I want to talk to you. I think that this will be a really great conversation. And I think that we're going to get somewhere because I think we're looking at scientific process as well as investigation process. So with that being said, I want to show how they coincide with each other. But it's all about data. It's all about data. You can go to a place 15 times, 20 times. If you're not getting the same data or at least something close to there every time, it may not be what you think it is. But it doesn't mean that it's not energy or entities. It just means that maybe you've misconstrued what you're looking at. And there's so many explanations for it. There's so many explanations, and it's a crazy thing. It's a crazy thing. So now that we've done a little bit with dark matter and showing how it's similar to what we think ghosts are, or entities, whatever you want to call it, now we're going to get back to the ghost side. And there's another article that's called The 5 Most Common Types of Spirits. And we're going to go over what those spirits are. And have you ever seen a ghost? Many of us have weird sensations about seeing shadows or shapes out of the corner of our eye, hence shadow people, only for them to disappear when we turn and look. And while you may be one of those people who is not afraid of such paranormal experience, did you ever stop and wonder just what kind of ghostly apparition you encountered. Maybe, like most folks, you didn't even consider that we could be different kinds of ghosts out there. But the fact is, experts in that field have put together a list of definitions of types of supernatural phenomena that exists, and it may come in handy, especially if you're headed on a ghost and gravestones tour. This is from Ghost and Gravestones. It is a tour you can go on. So they literally talk about different types of spirits. And now you're going to say, but we were just talking about science. Why are you going into different types of spirits now? What is the purpose of that? Because to look at these things scientifically, we have to know what we're looking for. We have to know we have to set parameters to an experiment, right? So a scientific experiment has parameters set, variables, all that stuff. So if we're gonna basically use their philosophy for our own better, I don't know what that was, but I saw something just happen. It was pretty wild. Don't know what it was. Who knows? Well, look at the video later. But if we're going to use their formula to figure out along their lines and how to not persuade them, but show them that paranormal activity is real, we have to set parameters. We're also going to set variables. We'll get there, right? So I digress to the different types of ghosts. First is the interactive personality. The most common of all ghosts spotted is usually of a deceased person, someone you know, a family member, or perhaps an even historical figure. These ghosts can be friendly or not, but often show themselves and others in a variety of ways, or show themselves to others in a variety of ways. They can become visible, they can speak, they can make noise, touch you, or even emit an odor like perfume or a cigar, etc., to let you know that they are there. Experts say that this type of ghost retains its former personality of when they were alive and can feel emotions. And often they are visiting you to comfort you, to let you know something important. So if you happen to see a lost loved one, chances are that they are there because they feel that you want or need to see them. That is one of the I agree with that statement. Now, this is the specific type of ghosts. I know I've read many files of cases that people have worked where they get these smells, and these smells don't go away right away, or they smell it for 30 seconds and it's gone. But there's a consistency with those things that we just mentioned in that specific, that there's parameter there to specify whether that ghost was what that is, which is an interactive personality, right? So, you know, that's fine, Jason. That's fine. It takes a few minutes. That's awesome. I appreciate you coming on. But as we're looking at that, right? It's wild. That's a wild thing because we're looking at this and we're setting the parameters of what it is this specific type of entity is. Now, the variable is in this specific equation, if we're taking it the way that scientists do, is how often this is happening or how many times has this happened before, right? So if we look at how many times this has happened to somebody, we look at some of the biggest, let's look at the documentary, The House in Between. We don't have permission to speak about it. I apologize for that. But, they had data that showed the same things were happening for 10 years. 10 years. Right? So with that being said, like, this is already falling in the lines of this scientific equation. And now that we know that these interactions happen, I interviewed Dan Clace, and he had the Hinsdale house, a lot of the same stuff. It's reported that the same things keep happening. So we can look and say, you know what, those places are almost definitely haunted. That's it. It's just what it is. It's just what it is. You know, and I know I'm going off on tangents, and I know I'm literally taking this everywhere because I just want to show the similarities between a scientific equation or how a scientist thinks of things and how we as investigators think of things, right? It's very similar. Even though the subjects can be such vast differences, we're literally doing the same things, just in different ways. So if we can adapt some of what they do to help us prove on our end what's actually happening, it helps. It helps, right? So then we go to the second type of entity. Hang on a second. I have to refill my coffee. I hope you don't mind, but I got to make sure I keep the hot stuff going because I'm talking too much. I have the gift of gab and I'm using it. So, ever seen a mist or a fog that almost looks like it's swirling? If so, you may be witnessing what paranormal investigators deem as a ecto mist or a ghostly mist. This vaporous cloud usually appears several feet off the ground and can move swiftly or simply stay still, almost like it's orbiting. Man, see how it's coinciding with the dark energy again and the orbiting of the planets, right? These ghostly encounters have been captured on so many videos and in so many photographs and can be white, gray, or even black. Although they can simply appear this way, linger, then move away quickly, sometimes ectoplasm appears before becoming a full bodied apparition. Many people have witnessed them outdoors in graveyards, battlefields, and historical sites. So we're looking at it again, right? So what exactly does this mean? I'm going to tell you what this means. This is another parameter for if a place has activity. It's just another set of parameters within parameters to say, look, this is what's happening. And it keeps happening. So, I mean, this is important stuff. It's important that you know these things too. If you're going out in the field, you have to know some of this stuff. You have to know that the way that these entities interact with things or ways that they could be seen so you can capture them. And, one thing I was told while doing an interview was if you're out there, always have a body cam on. And I thought to myself, that is one of the smartest things I've ever heard. A body cam in the front and a body cam in the back. Why? Because you never miss anything. And when we're out there, what is one of the most important things to having these encounters? It's your senses, your sight, the smells, your hearing, possibly even the touch. Talking, also interacting with the entity itself. Talking is a major one too. And you should always go in with the bearing of trying to help or at least respecting that entity. I think that's very, very important. Very important. A lot of people go in like a bull in a china shop. They go in and they mess things up. And then they wonder why they get these bad things that happen to them. They get scratched. And of course, there are some things that are dark. This time I am talking about dark entities. There are some things that are dark that may manipulate the situation. Yes, that may happen. I understand that. But if we go in with a clear conscience, clear head, and go in with that ability to help, most of the time we're going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. So let's go further, right? So let's go further into these types of ghosts. This is the one we were talking about, which is the poltergeist. The poltergeist is the one you have to watch out for. And we're going to tell you why, because you could get hurt. Scientists in the lab, when they mix chemicals or do these wild experiments with lasers and things like that, they can get hurt if they're not careful. Same with an investigator. The rules still apply. You can get hurt you're in a place that may be run down, disheveled. You may be messing with an entity that's a lot more powerful than you think. There's ways to get hurt. You have to maintain that clear head while doing experiments on the science side and also while you're investigating because it's dangerous. So, perhaps one of the most popular terms that most of us have heard when it comes to a ghost, the word poltergeist, actually means a noisy ghost. Not what you think. Because it is said to have the ability to move or knock things over, make noise, or manipulate the physical environment. While many of us have heard the term before, a poltergeist is actually one of the rarest forms of hauntings, and too many, the most terrifying. Loud knocking sounds, light turning on and off, door slams, even fires breaking out mysteriously have all been attributed to this type of spiritual disturbance. Another frightening aspect of the poltergeist is that the event usually starts out slowly and mildly, then begins to intensify. And while many times poltergeist activity is harmless and ends quickly, they have been known to actually become dangerous. Some experts explain it as a mass form of energy that a living person is controlling unknowingly. Whatever the case may be, poltergeists have caught the attention of the paranormal enthusiasts and experts, scientists, and many others who are just plain curious. You see, this is what I'm talking about. This could be bad, right? But even in that moment, in the beginning, I even used that term a little bit too much towards the dark side because it may not always be dark; it might just be noisy. But that's what that label is. So now, like I said, we're setting these parameters. These parameters are important because when we're going into these places and we're using these parameters, or we know what we're looking for, it's easier for us to spot because we know what's there, what's happening. But that also goes with the history of a place too. Once you have the history down, it's a little bit easier too. It's definitely something that happens a lot. And I like to see people get really good evidence and do the right thing. And there's a lot of different ways you can find this evidence. So it is what it is, right? That's what I always say. So I tell everybody all the time. It is what it is, bud. Just do it. Be okay with it. Hopefully the parameters are good for you. But myself, I like science. So this stuff to me is really important. It's really important, I think. So we know that these are the different types of ghosts. Poltergeists are very, if it's attacking people, it usually is a poltergeist. So maybe I didn't use it wrong, but this is a very rare type of encounter, which leads me to say this, and this may not be the same for everybody, right? I believe that 70% of the times that we encounter an entity, it's not dark. Yes, you have that demonic out there, you have the dark entities, but most of your investigations, you encounter a entity, but not a dark one. People are obsessed with the dark. Oh, it was a dark form, a dark energy. It was this. Stop. Stop. Because you're giving credence to manifestations that you have no knowledge of no bearing on wanting to encounter. And then when other people listen to other people say that, word of mouth goes down the line, and the place that's labeled dark may not be. It may just be an apparition that's trying to get a message out to somebody. And they're using every skill set that they have while being ethereal to get your attention. So you listen, so you look, and that's one of the things that personally I just think it's too much of that. Not everything's dark. There's a lot of light. Stay within the light. And I know I'm getting a little aggravated with that, but that's the truth. It's the truth. So we have orbs. Orbs are probably the most photographed type of anomaly. They appear as a transparent or translucent ball of light that is hovering over the ground. many ghost hunters and guests on Ghost Hunters and Gravestones are surprised to see them in their photos. And that happens. It's very easy to mistake dust, amongst other things, light refractions, as orbs all the time. We see people do that all the time. All the time. So, when you're looking at things, be careful what you label them. Be like a scientist. Don't label it, and be a skeptic. Be a skeptic all the time until you know for sure that's what it is. So many people, they experience something, one time, two times. They say, this is it. This is what happened. But, and I'm not discrediting anybody's stuff. I'm really not. This is not my intention. And I'm telling you that because I feel that people are going to take this the wrong way. They're going to say, well, what does he know? He's still fairly new in it too. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But, and what do I know? I may be wrong, but I'm just giving you my opinion. That's all I can do. And my opinion is, a lot of the things that happen, you have to test against them first before you can verify that it's actually what you think it is. You have to be the one to say, all right, take a step back. Was there dust in the room? Was there a cloud? Could it have been my imagination? Am I tired? Am I hungry? There's all these things you have to look at because the real evidence has to come out. We have to gather that evidence. We do. But we have to be skeptical of our own work because one of the things that happens too is that you put something out there and somebody else is skeptical of it and people get angry. Instead of getting angry, you should be thanking them. You're going to say, well, why the hell would you say that? Listen, I'm the Saturday Night Savage, and I said it. You should be thanking them for being a skeptic to where you couldn't do it yourself because of excitement and emotion. When I put work out, which I rarely ever do, because I don't like to do that, because I don't feel that I've encountered anything that's been so spectacular that it needs to be seen just yet. Am I going to have that? I hope so. I hope so. But all the stuff that I have can be explained another way. Therefore, it's evidence to me, but to bring it out to the community, it's not evidence because it can be it could be destroyed. I mean, it could literally be taken apart. Oh, it was this, it was that, it was this, it was that. Then now what I'm telling you is that if I've had this experience, it's conjecture because I can't prove it any way, shape, or form. I can't prove it. And that's crazy. As I was saying that, I just got a cold breeze on my face. And I tell you, there's no windows open in my house. I'm in the back corner all by myself, nowhere near a window. So maybe I'm onto something, maybe I'm not, but maybe it was my own breath reflecting off of the screen. You see how that's how I am. That's until I can get somebody to tell me exactly what it is, and I can't prove it in any other shape, form, or fashion. That's when I'll bring that evidence out, because I feel like it's just me saying that I think it's evidence, and I don't want to say I think it's evidence. I want to say that's evidence. That's the real deal. Take a look at that. Take a look at that. That's what I want to see. And that's another reason why I don't look at other people's evidence either, because if I do, sometimes, I mean, I've looked at other stuff, pictures and things like that. People have showed me. I tried to explain to them what it could be. People tend to get mad because they want you, when they show you that, they want you to believe it like they do. But I'm a skeptic. And I'm probably more of a skeptic on my own stuff than I would be of yours, because I like to hear people believing in their own stuff. So, there's a lot of conjecture. There's a lot of stuff. And I wish we could get to the point where we had that solid evidence that can't be broken down with some other reasoning behind it. You know, one day it will happen. One day it will happen. So we've done a lot of different types of shows here, right? So what I want to do is, and actually, I don't want to do that. I'm sorry. I don't want to do that. I'm losing my train of thought. And I'm telling you why I'm losing it. Because to me, I want people to understand that, and I mean this, I am not crapping on anybody's stuff. When I'm doing a show like this, I'm not doing it to make you think that what you have is false. I just want you to vet the information so we can find that piece of evidence that can't be explained. And then we can work off of those pieces of evidence so we can get ourselves to this place where we can say to people, that really might be what happened. That could be, that could be what it is. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there too. And here's the other thing. I'm gonna rant. We did a lot of science and a lot of facts and stuff. Now I'm gonna rant because this has to be said. I'm on TikTok. Okay. Sorry. I'm on TikTok. We see on TikTok, oh my God, hashtag paranormal, hashtag paranormal. And these people put up these fake videos, I don't know. Well, I don't know what that is. I keep seeing something. I don't know what it is, but it keeps happening like right over by like in between the sign on this blue right here. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's my hot air coming off my body, my steam, because I'm getting excited or I'm moving too much. But they put these videos up on TikTok, right? And they're like, oh my God, the door and this banging and all this crap. When I tell you it's crap, you people on TikTok that do that, where you can see the shadow of the guy standing behind the door and the shadow of the guy who's on the other side of the door frame doing all that stuff, or you can see the string that they're pulling on to make the door open and shut, or when that guy who you can see outside his window and his friends banging on it. Just stop. Just stop. Because there's people like me and like the audience here that take this seriously, and you're crapping all over it. You're literally crapping all over it. And I think it's appalling. And I think that you're misleading people with this stuff. And I'm not going to stand for it. I'm not. I think that you should rethink what you're doing, because when people come out with actual information or videos that actually happened that could possibly be the evidence that we need, they're discredited because of people like that are on TikTok or even anywhere else, YouTube and the rest of it. People who do fake stuff make it hard for the rest of us. Do you agree? Let me know, audience. Do you agree? I hope so. I hope so. So now here's the other thing too, right? One of the reasons why we have a medium in our team, or you should maybe have a medium if you know somebody, because they can communicate with the other side. We can't. That's another reason, like, that I love my team. My team is amazing. We are growing, and it's going to be a fantastic team. But basically, we're doing what we can to make sure that we have a little bit of everybody on the team. I want to make sure that everything that we're doing is truly remarkable work. We're all trying to do the same thing. So we have about a half hour left. I know I had some other stuff. We wanted to go into some other things. But one thing I want to start doing on the show, and next week's show is going to be awesome. We have a guest next week. You'll see the poster when it comes out. We're going to be getting into, we're going to be getting into a team, and it's going to be awesome. This team is going to be awesome, right? So, what I want to do is I want to highlight a specific team this week. CT Paranormal Researchers dishing truth on ghost hunting. This is October 6th, 2020, by a gentleman by the name of Andrew DeRosa. In a crowded field of paranormal attempting to uncover the truth behind the existence of paranormal entities, it often becomes daunting for the general public to infer what is indeed fact and what is indeed fiction. What did I just say? It's hard for some people to realize what it is. That's part of the problem. With shows such as Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures, people's only knowledge of the field may only come from sensationalized media that aims to make practice a sort of action film rather than a scientific study. Do I agree with that statement? No. I don't agree with that statement. I believe that those two shows, Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters, have gotten a lot of good information. So I don't agree with that. But this is a gentleman by the name of David Bray, who is part of Eastern Connecticut Paranormal Society. And he says, however, according to David Bray, the co-founder and lead investigator of the Eastern Connecticut Paranormal Society, this is further from the truth of actual paranormal investigating. If he says, if I take a photo and I say, oh, there's a ghost in the photo, well, because we have no scientific definition of what a ghost is or what it is made of, I actually can't say that it's a ghost in this photo. And I'm bringing this to light. And now, like I said, I don't agree with everything in this article. And I'm going to tell you why. But I believe this is something that we should be looking at, right? Because, just like I said, we have to set the parameters. We have to know what we're looking for. It has to be more scientifical. If it's more scientifical, then we can literally go into the mainstream more and people will believe more. That's the goal with science. But there's a lot of things I can say. I think that Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures are great shows. I enjoy them. I believe that they've gotten some empirical evidence. And, I think that there's people out there, even after the fact of being on those shows, like Brandon Alves, who's putting in the work to find scientific empirical evidence, along with Daryl Marston. And I'm not saying that anybody else isn't, but those two I know because I've looked at their stuff specifically. I think that they truly are working towards getting this scientific age within investigation. And I welcome it with open arms. I appreciate what they do and what they're working for. So here we go further. It says, it's not about the thrill of getting the evidence. It's about helping people. Rule number one. Data is awesome. Evidence, awesome. The drive while acquiring that evidence is to help the next man or others. This is what para-unity is all about. This is what George Shopland talks about all the time. It's about helping. You have to help. If you're going in there just to investigate and not help, but there's caveats to that too. Finding that evidence may be helping. So there are instances where that works. But the focus and the main goal, and I'm going to get really serious right now. The main goal is to help somebody. If you're not helping somebody, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like I said, there may be instances where getting that information is helping somebody. But there's times when it's not. It's not. Or people who go and investigate places and don't try and help the entities that are there. Or don't go and help whoever lives in that residential, or some kind of disclosure or some kind of closure to this moment that has affected their life on a level that only those people can understand. A scientist would never understand that. Investigators do. Investigators understand that firsthand. Look at my good friend Ernie, who was on last week. Ernie helps people all the time. He also brings people on ghost like flashlight tours and investigations because he wants them to understand what's happening. He wants to get them ready to be safe. He's worked in law enforcement. That's what he's used to doing, is protecting people. It's another thing you can do to help yourself too, is know where your strengths are. Work off those assets. So I digress. We have Chris S. watching. Hello from Coffee Time in Texas. We're all watching. Oh, it's my aunt. That's my Aunt Dawn. Hi, Aunt Dawn. Who's Chris? I don't know. I don't know what you guys are doing over there, but hopefully I'll be down in Texas soon. Soon. And again, I apologize for my look tonight. I was trying to put all this equipment together. It was a real crazy day. It's all right, Jason. We're going to finish up soon anyway, man. I just wanted to ask you about it. We could get you on one time. We'll set it up. Don't worry. We'll be in touch with that. But, this is important stuff, man. So, let's see. Bray helped co-found ECPS in 2015 when he met his fellow paranormal researcher, Chris O'Connor. Chris O'Connor, who is a psychic medium, convinced Bray to work together, despite Bray previously conducting formal paranormal investigations. I was very skeptical going in, and he said I actually was impressed so much that he decided to form a group. So they did that, and basically they've done roughly 50 investigations a year, and they've been together since 2015. So they've probably done over 200 investigations. So it says that over those 50 years, it does not include meetings with potential clients or things like that. They're as seen as phone calls and emails. We actually do more along the lines of debunking and disproving paranormal activity, said Bray. This is just one of those things where we want to stray from being lumped into the same category as other paranormal teams. So let's look at what they're saying here, right? There's like a stigma that these people in the paranormal are literally just finding these evidence. They're making things up. So there's this perceived notion that we're not telling the truth. Granted, this is why it's good to be skeptical, so we can get rid of this stigma, because the stigma is only hurting us in the long run. And the guys that I've been mentioning all night that have been doing this scientific data and things like that and putting this empirical data together are helping our cause, because they're giving us that base, like if you're making a house, we have that one leg that's holding the house up and the other one on, it's basically the foundation of what we work for from this point on. No, Jason, we're not on Zoom. We're on StreamYard. StreamYard is the way to go. That's an advertisement for StreamYard. There we go. No, but no, it's like a foundation, and it's always good to be a skeptic. I'll use it in a different term, not just a paranormal investigator. I'm skeptical my whole life, right? I meet somebody new. Don't know him from a hole in the wall. No, don't know him. What happens? You meet him. You talk to him for a little while. You're a skeptic of them. You don't tell them your innermost, darkest secrets because you don't know if they're a blabbermouth. You don't know if they're going to go running. Why is that? Because you're a skeptic. I think the evidence should be the same way. Investigations should be the same way. You have to get to know the person. You have to get to know the place. You have to get to know the data It's important. It's important to prove what we do. It's important. I truly believe that. So, that's one of the things that we do is to support local teams, right? I have that up there for a reason. There's a reason why I do that. And it doesn't mean just investigation teams. It doesn't mean that. It could mean local research teams. People need support. It could mean any team that you're familiar with. Research teams, chess club, who cares? Strategists. When you're looking at investigations and you're looking at all these different types of teams that are out there, you should remain the student forever, because even the most inexperienced team could teach the most experienced person something. Maybe you've been doing investigations for so long now that you've lost your enthusiasm for it. But there's people who are fresh and new. They're greenhorns in the whole thing. You do an investigation with them, and what? They give you that enthusiasm again. You get in touch with that. Let's just say you're new in the game, right? You're a greenhorn investigator, and you get a chance to investigate with some of the most knowledgeable people in the field. If you don't take advantage of that and you don't support the team that does that, then you're going to miss out. You've got to be skeptical about everything and everybody. And I hate to say that, but this is what the times calls for, especially with all the people who just want to make a name for themselves with falsehoods and, putting stuff out there that's not real. That, to me, like, I don't have the character to do that. So, it befuddles me how people could do that. But, so guys, keep it out. We're going to call it a little bit early tonight. We're only going to do about an hour and a half. I still have some other stuff I got to set up tonight before we actually sit down and enjoy some quality time with my girlfriend. She'll be home soon. And this was more of like a test run for all the equipment. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I am the Saturday Night Savage. Please go to our YouTube page and subscribe. If all you got to do is go into the search bar on YouTube and type Full Spectrum Universe, we're the first thing that comes up. Subscribe, like, share. More and more people. I think we're at about almost 225 now in subscriptions. By next year, I want to try and be on, hopefully by next year we can get up to like 1,000, 2,000. Who knows? But so, everybody, thank you all for tuning in tonight. I appreciate you. Hope everybody has a great rest of the day. And we'll talk soon. I'm Rob Yox. This is Full Spectrum Universe. Y'all have a good night.